In this tutorial, we will look at some powerful tools that enable us to edit clip art in Aspire. Just by taking 3 pieces of clip art that come free with the software, we can easily show you how you can edit them to create 2 new pieces of clip art. Okay, let's go ahead and set up a brand new job. Let's create a file. It's going to be a single-sided job. Now the width and the height of this are going to be approximate for this mantle, where once we're all done, we can go ahead and size this to what we need, but the proportions will be correct. So we're going to go ahead with 48 inches, and we're going to make our height 6 inches, and we're going to make our thickness 1 inch, and we're going to be zeroing off our material surface. We're going to set our datum to the center. Now we're going to do this on purpose. It makes it a little bit easier to visualize how we're going to create a symmetrical layout. We're going to make sure that our modeling resolution is set to very high. Because we're using 3D clip art, we want to have as many pixels as we can at our disposal. And then we can go ahead and choose our material settings, which essentially is just our texture for our material. And we can choose this out of the list. And for us, we're going to go up here and we're going to choose light oak. And then we're going to click OK. With this tutorial, we have given you all the pieces of clip art you need to recreate what we're about to do. In saying that, all of the clip art that we are going to use is included in the free clip art that you can download with your Aspire software. If you've already gone ahead and downloaded all the clip art packs and have them installed, then you have all of these already. We will be using a combination of the files included with this tutorial and the ones that you have already installed to demonstrate a few methods of importing in clip art into your job. Okay, now let's go ahead and import in our first piece of clip art. What we're going to do is we're going to go to our modeling tab and we're going to click this icon right here, which is import a component or 3D model. And if you go ahead and navigate over to where your tutorial has been installed, you're going to find those 3 pieces of clip art that we spoke of. And you're looking for flourish_118. So let's just select that and we're going to go ahead and click open. And you'll see when it imports in, it's already been selected for us because the handles are showing up here in the 2D view. And notice that it's not in the center of our job. So because we have smart snapping turned on and our geometry snapping turned on, we can go ahead now and just drag that to the center of our job and it will snap right there. Now also you can use the F9 key, which will do exactly the same thing. And that might be a little quicker for you in the end if you prefer to use that quick key. Okay, now let's go ahead and bring in our second piece of clip art. And to do that, we're going to go to our clip art tab and have a look at all the clip art that I've already downloaded from my V&Co account and installed. And so that's going to be under my clip art folder here. And when I click that, you'll see there's all kinds of different bits of clip art that I can choose from. We're going to look at our decorative section. So if I click on that, I can just go ahead now and scroll down through all these nice pieces of clip art and find the one that I need. And so I'm looking for 101_15. So let's just keep going down, and there it is right there, 101-15. Let's just double click on that, and you'll see that it's going to pop right into the middle of our job. So I'm going to use my scroll wheel and zoom in a little bit. I'm going to drag this off to the left. If I hold down my Alt key, it will snap it right to that axis there for me, so it won't move around on me. And we'll just put it right there for now, and that looks great. Now let's go ahead and find the third piece of clip art that we're going to use. Now that's down a bit farther here. And that's going to be number 73. So if we just go ahead and click down through this until we find that. It's right here. So we'll just go ahead and drag that in and just plunk it right there for now. And then we can zoom out a little bit and slide it over. And we're just going to put it off to the side here for right now. We're going to use it a bit later, but we'll just put it here for now. Now let's go ahead and have a look at our modeling tab. You'll see it down here in our component tree. We have level 1, and on level 1, we've got Flourish 73, Flourish 101, and then Flourish 118. So that's all of the clip art that we've gone ahead and imported in various different ways. So let's go ahead and tile our view so we can get a better look at our 2D view at the top and our 3D view at the bottom. Okay, just to make life a little easier for us, instead of leaving these names the way they are, we're going to rename them. So the first one, we're going to right click on that, and we're going to go down to rename, and we're going to call this A. Okay, and the next flourish, we're going to select it, right click on that, and we'll rename that B. And then the third flourish, well, you guessed it, we're not going to name it C, actually. We're going to name it Center. And that'll help us better denote which piece of clip art we're looking at when we're going to go ahead and edit these. Okay, let's go ahead now and start to size up these components so they make a bit more sense. So with the center selected, We can go ahead now and press T on our keyboard, or we can go over here to our transform objects, part of our modeling form here, and we can click that button there. T would bring up exactly the same form. And we are going to make sure that we have the link XY selected, and we're going to change the height of this component to be around 4.5 inches, and then we can click apply. You'll see that it gets bigger in the 2D and the 3D view. Now, seeing as we have this form already open, we may as well go ahead and size up this, this model here as well, this component as well. So with that selected, and you'll see that we have the link XY still selected here in the form, we're going to change this to be 3.5 inches. We can go ahead and click apply. Now let's close this down. Let's just go ahead and maximize our 3D view for a second here, and let's just zoom in. Now we're going to go ahead now and make sure that we get this lined up properly. So with a flourish like this, or a mantle flourish, we want to make sure we have a nice flow. So we want to go from the center and kind of move along down through this. So we're going to go ahead and select this component. We're going to hold down our Alt key and just drag it over. And you'll see that we get instant feedback on where we're going to place this. We can kind of find a place that we might want to put it. How about right there? That looks pretty good. So it's kind of flowing down and around and up and over. That looks pretty good. But I think that if we flip this component on its horizontal axis, we press H on our keyboard, or we can go ahead and use this mirror selected object. We're just going to press H on our keyboard, and you'll see it flips over. And then what we can do is we can hold down our Alt key, and we can drag it over just a little bit more. And the idea, I think, is what I want to do is get this little curl to tuck underneath this leaf right here. The leaf kind of raises up at the end. So if I can tuck it underneath there, that would be great. So with that selected, I can go ahead now, just use my cursor keys and nudge it down. I want to make sure that the interaction between all these elements here is exactly what I want, along with I still have the nice flow that I'd like to have. And I think that looks pretty good. Even though my combine modes are wrong, right now this component is being added on top of this component, so we get this very strange little bump here. We can fix that later though, but right now we're going to leave it there because looking at it straight down, I kind of know what I'm looking for. So let's just go ahead and take a look at that again. Let's zoom into our the end flourish here, and we're going to need to put it into place. So we'll select that, and we can press 0 on our keyboard to rotate that around for us. That's rotating it to the right. If we press 9, it's going to rotate it to the left. So just kind of turn that around like that. We'll kind of plunk that into place where we think it might go. So that's kind of nice. I think we could kind of get it to go flowing around here, up over this way, and down here and around. I think that looks all right, but I think what we're going to want to do in the end is actually flip this vertically. So we're going to press V on our keyboard, or again, we could use the mirror selected objects, but V is the quick key for that. We'll flip it over and we'll kind of slide that into place. And I think I like that a bit better. We're going to kind of position that where it is. The only thing I really don't like is this little bit here, but we'll deal with that in a second. So let's just go ahead and zoom out using the scroll wheel on our mouse. If I hold down both my mouse buttons, I can go ahead and drag my 3D view around. And let's take a look at this composition so far. So it's going to go from the center, down and around and up and around. I think that looks pretty slick in the end. I'm pretty happy with that. So if we off-click everything, we can take another look at that. That looks really good. Now, while we're right here, let's go ahead and fix this little issue we have right here. Note that the tail of this doesn't actually get added to the tail of this, or the front end of this component. That's because the A component has been set to be a merge component, and all of these are being added. So what we really want to do is have these all set up as merge components. So holding down my Shift key, I can go ahead and select the center, and I'll select all of the objects in between those two selections. I can right click on that, and I can change the combine mode. Now you note that I have a mixed match of different combine modes here. We've got add and merge, but I want them all to be set to merge. So let's just go ahead and click that. And when we do that, you'll see that in our 3D view, that's all been updated. And now this looks correct right there. And I'm pretty happy with that. Okay, let's go ahead and deal with this little tail right here. It doesn't look very good. So if we use our scroll wheel and zoom in, and again, hold down our two mouse buttons, we can just drag that over. There's all kinds of different ways we could kind of edit this piece of clip art to remove that tail. But for us, for this demonstration, we're going to use some of our sculpting tools. So we're going to select that component, and then we're going to go into our sculpting tools. Now we've got, of course, smoothing, we've got smudging, we can add some material, we can remove some material, we can delete material, or we could twiddle around. For this particular operation, we want to go ahead and we're going to use the undo brush. Now, when we have that selected, you'll note this little tooltip pops up here. So if we hold down the shift key, it's going to be an erase tool instead. So in the 3D view, as I hover around, you'll see the size of my brush that I'm going to use. I can use my scroll wheel to make it bigger and smaller. So we'll go ahead and just use my scroll wheel and get it to be about the right size. Okay, and we have, of course, we can control the diameter, the strength, and the smoothness of our brush, but for right now, we'll just go with those settings. We have the preserve transparency option, which means that if we have that turned off, we can actually edit things outside of the grayscale bitmap representation that we see in our 2D view. We can actually move outside of that component. But in my case, I want to stay within this component. I don't want to edit anything outside of that. And I can go ahead and show or hide my full model. So if I go ahead and click that off, you'll see that all the extra components are hidden. If I turn it back on again, then you'll see all those components come back up again. Now that's important because with those in view, I can actually see exactly what I'm going to be doing here when I erase this bit off of the end of this flourish. So again, let's hold down my shift key like it says here in my tooltip and go ahead and erase some of that component. And all I need to do is just erase it to the point where I don't see it anymore. And that's it. That's it. That looks perfect. So if I go ahead and show my or unshow my full model, you'll see that that's what I've done to my component. And when I go ahead and show it again, you'll see how it actually interacts with everything else. And that's perfect. So we'll just go ahead and keep that and we'll click OK. Let's go ahead and press F on our keyboard to focus in on the full job space that we have. And then we can move on to our next part of this design. Okay, I really do like where this is going. I think, though, I would like to add a little bit of something here to the end of this. Now, with flourishes, quite often you'll see that there's a lot of repeating patterns. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I can steal a bit from one of these pieces of clip art to add a bit of a tail here to the end of this flourish. And I think that if we zoom in using my scroll wheel on my mouse, if I could go ahead and just cut this piece of this center component out, that would look really quite nice, kind of stuck on the end of the flourish. So to do that, what I'm going to use is this tool right here, which is called Clear Area of Selected Component Outside a Selected Vector. So if I had a vector that was drawn around this piece of clip art or this part of this piece of clip art, then I could go ahead and zero everything outside of that, and I would have just that piece that I need. So to do that, let's go over to our 2D view. And let's zoom into the section that we need here. Okay, let's go ahead and draw a vector. So that's in our drawing tab. And we're going to use our freehand drawing tool for this. So I'm going to select that. And with our freehand drawing tool, I can go ahead and adjust my smoothness and my stabilization. So if I go ahead and hover in my 2D view here, as soon as I drop my mouse down, you'll see a bit of a circle that appears, and that is our stabilization circle. So nothing's going to happen until I actually go outside that circle. And the smoothness will be what the software will do in the end to make my line nice and smooth, depending on what I have that set to. We're going to leave things just the way they are, and we're just going to go ahead and start drawing. Now, again, like as I said, you'll notice that nothing starts to draw until I hit the outside of that circle. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to pay attention to the center part of that circle. I'm not going to worry about the crosshair. I'm just going to watch the center of the circle while I draw a reasonably neat line around the outside of this piece I want to keep, kind of drawing in and steering around all the pieces that I want to avoid. If I can't avoid some of it, I'm just going to cross right over it. Now, if I want to make a sharp turn, what I'm going to do is go back to the center of my circle and then shoot out the side of the circle that I want to go ahead and exit out of. And then when I get close to the end that I'm happy, I can just press tab on my keyboard and I have a nice vector to work with. Now, if I close this down and I select that vector and I go into node mode, so I can go into node mode by either going over here to my edit object section of my drawing form, or I can simply press N on my keyboard. You'll see that that function, the freehand drawing tool, has given me a nice vector with very few nodes to work with. So I can now go in and make some slight adjustments just to kind of make it so that I'm going to crop off all the bits that I don't want. So I want to make sure that I get rid of everything out here. And that looks pretty good right there. Let's just maybe make a few little changes here just to kind of make things look a little bit smoother. And I think that looks great. So let's zoom out a little bit. Now to see what happens, let's just go ahead and tile our views here and zoom in our 3D view to here. And we're going to zoom in here. Now, What we don't want to do is destroy this component that we have right here. So if we go to our modeling tab, this is the center component. If we select it, we don't actually want to go ahead and destroy it. We want to keep a copy of it so that we can go ahead and edit a different copy and then paste back in the original copy that we had. So with our pick tool selected, we can go ahead and select that component. We're going to go ahead and go Control C, or we could right click and just choose copy. So that's copied a version of that onto our clipboard, so it's nice and safe as long as we remember to paste it back in again. Now if we choose this vector and hold down our shift key and grab this component, we can go ahead now and use that tool we spoke of. So we're going to clear the area of the selected component outside the selected vectors. Click that, and you'll see what we end up with. Just this little tail right here. So let's just go ahead and delete this vector in our 2D view. We don't need that anymore. So maximize our 3D view. Select this new component that we have and drag it out of the way for a second. Now, it's important that before we forget, we better paste that back in again, that original component that we copied out. So let's just go Control and V to paste that in again, and there we have it back where it belongs. And that's perfect. Now, make a note over here in our component tree that things aren't named correctly anymore. So let's go ahead and select this centerpiece. That's just the end bit over here. And we're going to call it End Flourish. Okay, and then we're going to change our center. We're just going to clean this up and just get rid of that one bracket at the end. And that looks good. So everything is back to the way it should be. Now let's just zoom in to the end of this. So using my scroll wheel, I can zoom in. Holding down my two mouse buttons, I can kind of twiddle around this or slide around my 2D or my 3D view. And we can select this component and we can move it into place. Now again, we're thinking about the actual flow of this. So that looks okay right there. But I think what we can do is actually make it look a bit better. So let's just rotate that around a bit. Let's move it up a little bit. Let's rotate it a bit more, just so we get that flow that we were talking about. Let's size it up a little bit. I think it's a bit small. Now we can go ahead and just move it into place. A little further maybe. This is all very subjective stuff here. That looks pretty good there. Now what we want to do is we want to adjust the shape height a bit of this component. So what we can do is we can grab this little arrow handle right here. So this box handle, if we hold down our left mouse button and drag up or down, that's going to add base height to our component. If I grab the arrow and do the same with my left mouse button, you'll see that I can change my shape height just slightly. So what we're going to do is we're going to change it to be, that's the best we can do. We don't want to take away all of our detail here. Let's go ahead and select this component. And what we're going to do is we're going to choose this little box right here at the bottom to bring up our floating properties dialog. And we'll just slide it over here. And we're going to add a bit of tilt to this component. So let's just go ahead and choose tilt. And we're going to set our two anchor points, one at this end and one up here. And then what we can do is we can just use this drop down and we can drag a bit of tilt into this, just so you can see what happens. We're tilting that up just a little bit. Right about there. And that looks all right. Close this down, grab this component, use our cursor keys and just nudge it to the left a bit. I think that looks okay. Let's take a look at this straight down. And it kind of does this, 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 and then it terminates like that. I think that looks pretty slick, so I'm pretty happy with that. What you might want to do is just try and line up everything with the bottom of this, so maybe just a little bit more of a edit here to this might help us get that where we want it to be. Maybe we'll just size it down just a little bit. We don't want the installer of this mantle to have any trouble getting into place. Okay, and that looks really good, just like that. That's perfect. So let's go ahead and look down on this. That looks great. That's a great point to stop and have a look and see if we can save out any bits of this as clip art that we can use in later jobs. So if we go ahead now and hide our center here, I think that this end bit here is a really nice piece of clip art that we could go ahead and save out for later use. So if we hold down our control key and select all the components that make up that piece of clip art there, we can go ahead and right click on that and we can group that together. Then what we can do is we can just rename this. We'll just call it N Flourish. We'll delete that out of there. Okay. And then we can go ahead and with that selected, we can right click on that and we can export this as a 3D clip file. Now, one of the great things about a 3D clip file is it can be one single component or it can be a group of components like we have here. And when we go ahead and use this in the future, because it's a group of components, it's going to be imported into our new project as a group of components. And so we can ungroup it and edit the bits that we want. So we can add or we can remove or we can rotate these things around to better suit our needs. So let's just go ahead and export that as a 3D clip file. Okay, you'll see the name is picked up right from our component name over here. And we can just go ahead and click Save. Now let's go ahead and show the center again. And let's finish up our design here. So what we're going to want to do is copy this part of our composite model over to the other side of our job. And to do that, with that selected, we can go up here and we can mirror selected objects. So let's select that. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to flip it horizontally about our job center, and we're going to create a mirrored copy. So let's just go ahead and flip horizontally. You see the result of that is this over here on our right-hand side. So let's go ahead and close this down. Now what we want to do is actually take this model and create a solid component from it. So to do that, we're going to go over to our level, select it, we're going to right-click on that, and we're going to say Insert a New Level. Make sure this level is selected, and we're going to use this option right here, which is Create a Component from Visible Model. So anything that we can see in our 3D view will become a solid component. So let's just go ahead and click that. What we want to do is right-click on that and make sure that we show only this. That'll hide everything else. Let's go ahead and minimize this tree here. There we go. And now we can go ahead and just rename this. Right-click on that, and we're going to rename that Mantel Flourish. Okay, so let's go ahead and size that up. We're going to select that and press T on our keyboard. And we can go ahead and just kind of change the height of this. Well, actually, we're just going to do it with our control handles here. So hold down our Shift key. And we're going to drag this up until it fits in that job space the best we can. We'll let go of that. And you'll see that everything in our form here has been updated, and we can close that down. Now, I didn't need to press T on my keyboard. I just could have gone ahead and eyeballed that into place, but it's just good to know that the form updates after you're all done sizing it up. And we can go ahead and click that. Take a look at that. That looks really good. A couple things you might notice about my composite model here. First of all, if you go up into View here, you'll notice that I have shadow shading turned on. So I can go ahead and turn that off, or I can go up here and I can turn it back on again. The shadow shading helps to accentuate those recesses and so on that we have. I can also go ahead up here and I can go View and I can hide my modeling plane and end up with this nice looking rendering here that I could send off to a customer to have approved if I would like to. Okay, now what we're going to want to do is go up here and save off our file. So File, Save As. We'll put it right in our tutorials folder, and we're going to call it Mantel Flourish and click Save. Hopefully that tutorial helped you to see how easy it can be to edit some of the free clip art that comes included with your Aspire software. It's amazing what you can do with just a few of the editing features available to you. Now it's your turn to go out there, take a look through your free clip art, and create your own mantle.